All right. Now, all that tracking, a lot of times some people say, why should I track? Or people that track on books, I know sometimes it can feel like it gets a lot after a while. But the advantage of tracking in an app, of course, is the insights it gets back to you. And that's where MyClusters reports come in. There's a couple of ways to access the reports feature. One is directly on the reports page. This is by default set to the current month. So you can see all the insights that you have from the current month. You can filter by specific dates by clicking on the little pencil here. You can click on the funnel and you can filter by triggers. You can filter by symptoms. You can filter by medications. You can filter by alternative abortive methods, and you can filter from and to specific pain levels. The other way to access reports is from the cycle feature. So on the home screen, if you go to view all cycles, you can see for each of the cycle, there is a cycle specific report. So if I click on the cycle to view reports, you can see that it's already filtered by December 5th, 2024 to Jan 5th, 2025. That was the cycle I had in the last winter. And you can see that in this cycle, I had 12 headache-free days, monthly overview, etc. Now, going back to reports, if you don't want to see specific cycle specific features, you can clear all. The default is current month, but you can specify any date. So let me just go to my most recent filter and let's pick a month. So let's say July 22nd to August 22nd. You click on apply and the dates are filtered. And when you see that there are multiple charts here, the first one is number of headache-free days. I had 0 headache-free days. Now, this just goes to show the burden. Like if I want to talk to my support system, talk to my doctor and say in a month I had 0 free attacks. And if you want to look more into the detail, you can see that there is the month overview chart where you can see each of these dots indicates an attack and the color of the dot indicates the pain intensity. So low is 1 to 2, medium is 3 to 5, high is 6 to 10. So as you can see here, on the 22nd of July, I had 1 attack with a high intensity, but on the 30th, for example, I had 3 attacks. So my cycle started on the 22nd with 1 attacks, which is quite typical, and then it started picking up in number of attacks with intensity being the same. And if you go to August, then you can see my cycle really peaked here with August 4th being 4 attacks, with August 10th being 4 attacks, August 20th being 4 attacks. Another way this monthly overview is useful for me as well, because I know certain preventive treatments that I tried on the 1st of August, then I know from the 1st of August it didn't really improve. So on the 19th of August, I started a different treatment. So you can see while it didn't have any immediate effect, then it started to show some effect after. And the tags, remember the tags feature? All the tags that I created are here as well. So because I was traveling during this time, I can also see that I created tags based on location. So I can see 12 of these attacks I had when I was traveling in India, 4 of these attacks I had when I was traveling in Scotland, and only 1 of these was a shadow, and 1 was in the flight. And moving on, we have the weekly headache patterns. Now, this one is particularly useful for me because it helps me plan my weeks. So over the course of a month, you can see that the attacks are somewhat settling. I had previous cycles where some days would be really clear as to how it would be good in terms of attacks, and some days were really bad. So here you can see that Wednesdays and Fridays are high frequency attack days for me, whereas Tuesdays and Saturdays are kind of good days. So I usually use this information to maybe plan more of my activities on a Tuesday or a Saturday, and on Wednesdays I wouldn't plan much at all. So while it doesn't really help with the pain, we all have lives to live, so this helps on a very practical level. The intensity of headaches is a more granular graph. So here you can see the breakdown per day, right? So from the monthly view, if you want to go down and see individually what happened to each of those attacks, you can see that the cycle is progressing somewhat randomly. Some days I would have few attacks, but you also know then some days of the week were better for me and some days really bad. And if you are trying certain abortives or preventive medication, you can see how it's really causing any positive effect or no effect at all, or maybe sometimes making it worse. Now, some of these are already things that your doctor will ask you for those of you that don't have a diagnosis. This is why tracking is super important, because a lot of these graphs would answer a lot of questions that any doctor would need to know before diagnosing you or giving you a specific course of treatment. Again, none of this is medical information. Please keep that in mind. That's super important to know. This is very useful. Please consult a medical professional if you suspect having cluster headaches. So, moving on. The next is the time and duration of headaches. This is a scatter plot, and here you can see why they are called cluster headaches. You can see the clustering of these attacks. And if according to the diagnostic criteria, almost all cluster headache attacks are between 15 minutes to 3 hours. I am quite typical. So you can see there was one attack that was more than 3 hours, but most of them are under three. And based on the timing of the headaches, you can see when I got these attacks. So when I can possibly expect the next attack. So which is usually early mornings or late nights. So this can help me in different ways by planning my days to see when I should have activities, when I should have my rest. And also oxygen is my most favored treat type of abortives. So I can plan to be in and around my oxygen. I can see the number of attacks and somewhat plan the expected amount of oxygen that I would need to keep it handy. And also you can see oxygen is my most used medication here. And this frequently used medications also gives me a good grip on the number of other medications that I'm using, especially if I'm having side effects, especially if they're not available, if they're not prescribed in enough required quantity by the doctor or handed out by the pharmacy, right? For a lot of reasons, we don't have as many medications as we need. So this comes in handy to track that, because sometimes we really have to ration our medications. And the same thing in terms of percentages, you can see here that the most abortive medications I rely on oxygen and triptans. Nasal sprays didn't work that great for me. And the abortive methods are coffee and energy drink. My symptoms, again, this is useful to explain to your doctor, especially if you don't have a diagnosis. You can see restlessness, runny nose, red eyes, irritability, forehead sweating as the symptoms, for example. And my triggers, sleep most of the time. So I usually, in a cycle, try to see what I can change with my sleep cycle, duration, quality, resting. So even if the attacks leave me tired, then I have less energy during the day, so then I need to rest or nap, but those also are triggered. So it does become quite difficult, but I can use the timings to see how I can manage that. And finally, the location of the headache. So this will not always add up to 100%, because there are multiple locations you can select, but between the left eye and right eye, you can see that it is 100%, right? So I am quite typical in the sense of how cluster headaches are usually described as side-locked, or as the medical world likes to say, ipsilateral. So I am predominantly left-sided, but I did get some right-sided attacks in this cycle. So here's how you can interpret the reports. A handy function is that when you want to talk to your doctors, when you want to go prepared for your appointment, a lot of times you have to go armed with information. And we have a handy feature for that, which is exporting the PDF. So when you click on the export PDF here, it generates a PDF file that you can save, that you can mail to yourself and keep for safekeeping. You can share it you can email your doctors directly. Another feature is also a social share feature, because I really believe that we should spread as much awareness as possible. And this includes social media. Wherever you usually spread awareness about cluster headaches, we ask online communities about help that we need. And it's always important to share exactly what's happening, right? Sometimes on communities, you see that you describe in words and people don't know enough about your condition. And here you can easily share on with your support system on WhatsApp or with your wherever you are interacting with your community on online forums, on Instagram, on Reddit, on Facebook. So this way it makes it quite easy. And then if you do want to highlight the level of your pain, so if you do want to, if I would want to say, for example, highlight the number of attacks and how intense cluster headaches is and how it's not just a headache, I would share this monthly overview on Instagram, for example, and I would say this is the burden of cluster headaches. So, yeah, that was a big one. Hope this was useful. Thank you.